Live, it's the Inside Scoop, Virginia. All the news Virginians want to know. Here's your host, political insider, George Burke.
Welcome to tonight's edition of Inside Scoop, Virginia. I'm privileged tonight to have as my guest Delegate Brian Moran. He represents Northern Virginia's 46th district, which is part of Alexandria, part of Fairfax County. He's chairman of the Democratic Caucus in the House of Delegates. He has been a legislative partner certainly with Mark Warner and Tim Kaine and many of the advances we have made here in Virginia. He's been active on the campaign trail with Mark Warner and Barack Obama. And I could go on and on. There's a lot of things I could tell you about Brian. But Brian, welcome to the show. And one thing I forgot, he's a candidate for governor this year, or next year actually. I forget, we're still in 2008. So welcome aboard. Let's talk a little bit about the elections.
Sure, there's a lot to talk about. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
As chair of the 11th Congressional District, we have a wonderful new congressman, Jerry Connolly, who did an outstanding job as the chair of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and there's no question he'll take that knowledge, that skill set about how to get things done as a local government official to Washington, and that's what we need in Washington right now.
And he's only one, you know, we had a Republican majority in our congressional delegation.
8-3. We have 11 congressmen. 8-3, and now it's 6-5 Democratic. Again, goes to show the progress we've made here in Virginia.
Across the state, you know, we tend to have this myopic, some of us like myself,
you do, I don't.
have this myopic view in Northern Virginia, but you've been all around.
We have a wonderful Commonwealth of Virginia. It's not a real Virginia or fake Virginia, it's only the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we won, in addition to Jerry's seat here in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax and Prince William, we won the 5th Congressional District. Now that was one that was held by a Republican, Virgil Good, for a number of years. It stretches from Charlottesville all the way down to the North Carolina border. And Tom Perriello, a young man, 33 years of age, waged a vigorous campaign. And you know, I think because of Mark Warner's success, Barack Obama's success, and the type of candidate Tom turned out to be, you know, we were successful there as well. And the third victory was in the 2nd Congressional District, which is close to Virginia Beach, to the northern, the eastern shore, and Norfolk, a little bit of Hampton. And Glenn Nye, again, a young man in his early 30s, ran against an incumbent Republican who I served with in the legislature. She voted against Jim Webb's GI Bill. And in that area with a very high military personnel located there, residing there, she voted against it, and you know, and that really hurt her. And again, Glenn Nye ran a great race, and so we picked up three new seats to go along with Congressman Jim Moran, Congressman Boucher, Congressman Scott, and so yes, it's quite a turnaround that we've had here. Yes.
You had an opportunity to campaign across the state quite a bit for Barack Obama, and certainly even with Mark Warner. I know there were a number of instances where you and now Senator-elect Warner were together at places. I know you've spent a lot of time in the Hampton Roads area and in South Side and in Southwest.
Well, I tried to visit every Obama office. We initially said, well, there'd be 20, and then there was 35, and then there was 50. I believe it ended up over 70 Obama offices, and so I tried to visit every one. They were as far out in the Southwest as Clintwood, and Waynesboro, Winchester, Harrisonburg, up and down Shenandoah Valley, which is not a particularly Democratic area, and then Southside, Martinsville, Danville. And he did well in all of those areas. I mean, he optimized the Democratic vote in those areas, and then did extremely well in Northern Virginia, that you had a great part and role in, and then in Hampton Roads, and in and around Richmond as well. And I stopped into the Richmond office the night before, well, at least that was the last weekend, and the buzz, the activity, and you haven't been around a lot of elections, you know, as it's kind of a crescendo building, you know, and as you approach that campaign, I was convinced we were going to win. Because of the organization. There were so many young people involved. In fact, I ended up the campaign season at Monday night at University of Virginia. Sarah Buckley, a wonderful young lady there, is organizing the College Democrats. She had a big rally. There were over 100 students there. There was just so much energy and idealism. You remember that when you were young, and
Long time ago, right after the Depression, I think. I'm not sure.
We were both so idealistic about what change can bring, and you could feel it in the room. It was a wonderful moment, and I had a chance to speak to those young students. And frankly, that's the future. And they talked about change and the environment and the economy and the war in Iraq and foreign affairs. And, they got it. They really understood the significance of this election. They came out, they worked from the beginning with Barack Obama, and ultimately it paid off. Just a wonderful election, and now we have to work with President-elect Obama and Senator-elect Mark Warner and make sure that we give them the same assistance we gave them during the election to address global climate change and strengthen our economy and bring our troops home and so there's and cure our sick healthcare policy system here in America. So there's a lot of work yet to be done, and now we need to get down to the hard work and make sure that we bring about that much needed change here in America.
It was a historic election nationally. I think it was a historic election internationally, but it was a very historic election here in Virginia. 44 years, I think it's the last time.
Not since 1964 had Virginia gone for a Democrat. You were in Denver, and we were at Invesco Field, where Barack Obama provided such an inspirational speech, but sharing that stage with our own governor, Tim Kaine. And that night he took the stage and expressed his deep faith, which we already know that he does indeed possess in a very sincere and a genuine way. And he talked about moving mountains, and if you have enough, if faith is deep enough, you can move any mountain. Of course, those of us who had been around campaigns in Virginia knew he was referring to Virginia voting for a Democrat for president. It was a steep mountain to climb, but we did it. We moved the mountains, we got the message out. Barack Obama visited here numerous times.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. I had an opportunity to meet him in Fairfax in July when he was here.
And he was in Gainesville here in Northern Virginia, and they started the campaign in Bristol, far southwest, and then he had come to Norfolk, come to Virginia Beach, and Richmond, and Joe Biden. I saw Joe in Suffolk, Virginia. So they came and they worked hard, and the campaign worked hard, and congratulations, hats off to all of those folks who canvassed and phone called and worked on this campaign.
I think that all the candidates, from Barack Obama right down the line, and many of them were victorious here in Virginia, I think they represented the Virginia ideal. They were talking about responsible, common sense government, is where they were coming from. And that's what Virginians expect. It's what they've always expected.
Well, in 2001, Mark Warner was elected governor. I was chosen by my peers that year to serve as their caucus leader. Now, in addition to being very involved in the legislative process and partnering with Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, I also was responsible to recruit candidates. So I've been traveling the state for 7 years, recruiting strong candidates. This past year, we had, in 2007, we had 3 CPAs, certified public accountants, running as Democrats. We had 3 retired military. We had the commander of the Norfolk Naval Station running as a Democrat, and he won that Virginia Beach seat previously held by a Republican. We had police officers, law enforcement personnel, and so we've recruited. I mean, when I took over in 2001, traveling Virginia, small towns to big cities, people were not jumping out of their seats to run as Democrats here in Virginia, but gradual, a lot of hard work. Gradually, it's been building, and obviously, we had a tremendous success this year. But people ask me all the time, "Oh, Virginia's changing." I've been on CNN, and they ask, "Well, what's happening in Virginia?" And yes, is there a demographic change? Of course, there is. We're very familiar with that here in Northern Virginia. But, I think Democrats have been changing Virginia. And it's built on some basic principles. First, you govern in the model of Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. You take a business-like approach that's focused on getting real results, and that's why we're the best managed state in the nation. And it's also focused on the future, our kids, the next generation. That's why we are the best state for a child's lifetime success. And so we're in touch with issues, strong economy, affordable and accessible health care, safe communities, good schools. That's what has been getting Democrats elected, and Virginians have been responding to our message.
I think that, as I said, it's something where the business climate in Virginia is good, but that doesn't make sure that the Virginians have a good quality of life, and it's a well-managed state. You folks don't have the luxury of printing money in Richmond like they do in Washington. You have to balance the budget year after year.
We've been fiscally responsible. We balance our budget. We have a AAA bond rating, and so we have been fiscally responsible, and that again resonates with Virginians. They know they have to balance their checkbooks, and we should do so on the state government.
The economy clearly became the lead issue in the national campaign and in these congressional campaigns. It usurped the war, it usurped health care, which were both up toward the top in terms of the polling I saw of Virginians and folks in Northern Virginia and in other areas of the state. The governor and the General Assembly are going to have some tough decisions to make. Over the next year as they deal with the budget. And some of those decisions are going to be tougher, as I said, than what the Congress and the President have to make, because you can't operate with a deficit.
We can't operate that way. We don't print money. We have to balance the budget.
What are you hearing around the state from people? How do they expect this to be resolved? And let me preface this with the fact that this is not a Virginia problem. This is a national problem. Just about every state in the Union has fiscal problems. There's a whole bunch of causes for it in terms of how the recession that we're facing and the like, the subprime mortgage issue, property taxes are down, Fairfax County's facing it, Arlington, Alexandria, all across the state communities are facing the same problem.
Your listeners are facing it.
Yes, no doubt.
They're worrying about paying their mortgage, whether they can afford college tuition, whether they're putting off purchasing decisions. They're not buying a new automobile. It's going to be a tight, lean Christmas season as we approach. The retail merchants are struggling. So we're going to have to do that in the state. Now we have a $77 billion budget. That's 2 years, so half of that per year. The majority of our spending goes to Medicaid, health care, and education. We have some discretionary spending with respect to Department of Environmental Quality, of course VDOT, but VDOT receives most of their funding through fees that we impose on gas and car sales. And car sales being down, gas sales being down, VDOT Department of Transportation doesn't have the money to perform their function. And so there are very lean times here in the state, and we're going to have to cut the budget. They expect a $2 to $2.5 billion shortfall, and we're going to have to come up with that money because, again, as you say, we cannot print money. We can't, monkey with the books and appear to have the money. We have to balance the books. But Governor Kane, preceded by Governor Warner, was Jim Gilmore, previous governor, and difficult times in 2001. We had a shortfall at that time. And he cut back for two years. He eliminated state positions, he eliminated commissions, and he made sure we were more effective and efficient with respect to purchasing. I recall the procurement practices we modified and reformed. So, those are the type of practices that we need to use again to balance our book, to be efficient and make sure we're using taxpayer dollars efficiently and wisely.
I want to get back to that right after the break. We're going to take a 2-minute break. My guest is Delegate Brian Moran, Democratic candidate for governor.
Too many women are pressured into having unprotected sex, violence.
At Volunteers of America, we don't just give kids a way to stay off the streets. We give them the tools they need to reach their full potential. We don't just help the elderly receive needed care. We help them live life to the fullest. We don't just provide food for homeless individuals and families. We provide job training and placement so they can buy groceries. Volunteers of America is a national organization that for over 100 years has provided programs and services that allow people to overcome their challenges to become vital members of their community. Find out how you can support the programs that are working in your community. Call 1-800-899-0089.
Drivers face all kinds of distractions.
Guys, stop playing. No. Of 127 consecutive.
Before your wireless phone becomes one of them, stop. Drive safely. Keep your phone in easy reach and dial sensibly. In bad weather or traffic, call later and use a hands-free device. Remember, with wireless, safety is your call.
Once again, George Burke with the Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. My guest today is Delegate Brian Moran. He's the Democratic Caucus Chair in the House of Delegates, and he is a Democratic candidate for governor. As I look at some of my notes here, just, you know, I mean, I can go on forever, but Child Advocate of the Year by the Virginia PTA, Sheriff's Association Legislator of the Year, a legislative hero by the League of Conservation Voters. I mean,
well,
you know,
public
got some
safety,
people out there that like it.
Public safety, education, the environment, those are big issues that I am you know, passionate about. The Sheriff's Association, I've worked closely with them, and we need to make sure that we provide the necessary law enforcement for keeping our community safe. I was a prosecutor for 7 years in Arlington County, and you have to be smart about crime as well, punishment as well as prevention, and then you have education. I have 2 young children in the Alexander City public schools, a first grader and a third grader, so their education is extremely important to me, as it is to all Virginians, and how we educate our young people to make sure they are equipped with the tools necessary to compete in what is increasingly a global competition. And of course the environment, it's essential that we are good stewards of our environment for the next generation. There are so many challenges right now with global climate change and air and water and energy, and the relationship to energy, and how the sources of where that energy comes from. And so I've been very proud to work with the League of Conservation Voters on their issues, and work to keep our environment clean, and so those are big issues. I've been very proud to receive their support and recognition of my legislative work.
I, for one, and I think a lot of other Virginians, breathed a sigh of relief when Governor Kane was not chosen to be Barack Obama's vice president, although some of the folks I've talked to, friends of mine who are involved, said in many ways he was the Barack Obama's top choice. And we were further relieved, at least so far, when he told us he was going to stick it out through the rest of his term. I mean, it could have been an easy way out, and left the fiscal issues to somebody else, and he's opted to stay there. And I know you have his ear, and you'll be an integral part of negotiations and working to help Virginia right the ship that, quite frankly, it didn't create the storm that's caused it to list. What type of moves do you think are the best with the budget in terms of, as you said, so much of it's education, so much of it's Medicaid, which is pretty much fixed. I mean, there's not much you can do there. Where are we going to, how are we going to find the cuts? It's going to be tough. I mean, everyone I've had on the show, everyone I've talked to said it's going to be tough for everyone. There's just no way to get around it.
Yeah, there are no sacred cows, but as we approach that, though, we need to be smart, and education and public safety are 2 fundamental core services that people expect and deserve from their government. And so as we cut programs, we need to be mindful that what the services we need to provide for our constituents and for Virginians. Let me return to your earlier point about Tim Kaine. And Tim was an early supporter of Barack Obama.
No doubt.
He saw Barack Obama's ability early on. So he's a trusted friend of Barack Obama's. And so the vice presidential nod was close, and he was certainly on the short list, as was Mark Warner and Jim Webb. I mean, we can be very proud of,
Absolutely.
of our statewide candidates. They're, you know, they're all done extremely well, and they were all on the short list as they deserve to be. Of course, Joe Biden ended up to be a great pick.
No doubt.
Foreign affairs expert. I mean, Joe's a very well respected member of the Senate, and particularly his knowledge of foreign affairs, which was something we desperately need in these dangerous times. Now, Tim would have also made a great Attorney General. Tim, civil rights lawyer, a successful lawyer, Harvard grad, smart fella, Southern governor, of course, and a trusted friend who you want as your counsel. So that was an opportunity I thought that he might actually accept. He's chosen not to. I think he needs to stay in Virginia.
I'm very proud of him. I mean, it's very enticing to do that, and you know, I mean, to serve as a cabinet level secretary within the administration is a big deal.
Well, and let your viewers know that we are the only state in the nation that has a one-term governor. So Tim, regardless of what he wants to do next year, is out. Come January of 2010, he will be gone. Now, I hope to be able to continue his policies as being sworn in January of 2010 as Virginia's next governor. But he has to leave, and so this was an opportunity. You know, it looked pretty good, I'm sure. But he is staying, and we have a budget deficit. He realizes this is his job, that he was elected in 2005 by Virginians for a 4-year term. Now, I would like to change that two-term governor.
I think it would be much more appropriate. Strategic
planning. You know, here's Governor Kane trying to pursue universal pre-K for our youngsters. He got some of it. He was able to achieve some success on that. But transportation continues to be unachieved, and so you need to plan strategically. You need more than 4 years.
Plus, the first budget that the governor deals with is not even his own.
Predecessor.
I mean, he was lucky that it came from Mark, but I mean, you know, I didn't envy Mark taking it from Jim Gilmore.
Right. A lot of those priorities. Now, I share the same priorities with Tim with respect to investing in early childhood education and preschool. Two young kids, as I said, and they both had quality preschool, and you can see the benefits of that when they reach kindergarten. You know, they're ready to learn. And we need to expand that so all of our young children have that ability. 90% of brain development occurs between the ages of 0 to 5. And that's not where our investment dollars are in education. And so we need to do a better job and expand on that. So that's a priority. We share what he budgets. You know, this year I would continue over the next year, but you're absolutely right. If you have a change between a Democrat and a Republican, or a Republican, you know, they have different priorities. That's why they're Democrats and I'm a Democrat and they're Republicans. We share some different values and priorities. And again, as we approach this budget shortfall, priorities, education, public safety, core responsibilities, and I'll tell you, economic development, as I travel all over Virginia, you know, we are far more alike than we are different. People are struggling right now with their mortgages, their job security, whether those jobs will exist for their children. They worried that the wages are suffering, because even if they get a wage increase, it is eliminated by an increase in their insurance premiums. So it's a challenge. There are challenging times right now, and what I'd like to do as governor is continue the economic development and pursue more opportunity in Southside and Southwest Virginia. And it benefits a couple of ways. You know, one of my heroes is President John F. Kennedy, and you know, he was fond of saying, "A rising tide lifts all boats." Well, if we have job creation in Southside or Southwest, that not only helps them, but it helps us as Northern Virginians. Helps the entire Commonwealth. Helps the entire Commonwealth.
No doubt.
You know, I've seen some examples. Let me give you a couple of examples.
But I want to get back to that. We have a call from Joan from Alexandria. I want to remind our viewers, you can reach us at 571-749-1166. But let's see if we can get Joan on the phone here before she hangs up on us.
Hello?
Hello, Joan. You have a question for Delegate Moran?
Yes, I do. Hi, Delegate Moran.
Hi.
I have been a Republican, I guess, up until 2008, and I was very disappointed when I saw President Bush veto children's health care. I was wondering what you thought we could do in Virginia to help with children's health care.
Excellent question, Joan. We actually have done a good job here in Virginia to expand access to children's health insurance. During Mark Warner's tenure, we actually achieved 98% enrollment for all eligible children in health insurance. You know, I have 2 kids in the public schools in Alexandria. I mean, I want them sitting next to children that have had access to immunizations and antibiotics if they're sick. I mean, of all things, we really need to make sure that health care is provided to our young people so that they can be successful adults. It's a lot easier to address these issues early on than later. I recall being with Governor Kane. We actually had a conference call with the press and our congressional delegation to appeal to them and ask them, please support this legislation. This will provide more access to children's health insurance here in Virginia. And I was very, I mean, it was a dark day when he vetoed that bill, and it really makes no sense for the short term or long term. You know, it's absolutely essential that we make sure that these young people are healthy so that they can be productive adults. So I was disappointed to see that, Joe, and I'm glad you have come aboard. I hope we continue policies as Democrats that would appeal to you, who was a previous Republican and is obviously paying close attention to the issues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I look forward to watching your campaign.
Thank you for calling.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I want to spend a little more time on the economic development issue. We only have about a minute left now.
Well, here's a couple. I was just in Israel and visited with 3 different CEOs in Israel, asking them, what can we do to get you to create jobs in Virginia? What is it about Virginia you want to come to Virginia? Oran Safety Glass is a company, they're in a kibbutz in Jerusalem, and they actually have located to Virginia in Greensville County, previously double-digit unemployment in Greensville. It's near Emporia. If you drive 95 all the way to North Carolina border, you'll drive through Emporia on 95. That's where it is. And they have now created 140 jobs in that area, and they're creating the safety glass. They're manufacturing the safety glass for our Humvees over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And their client, of course, is the Pentagon. So the Pentagon's location here in Northern Virginia was one of the reasons they came here, and they can drive up 95 to deal with, and the land was cheaper there, and some of the salaries cheaper than landing right here in Northern Virginia. But
there's a major workforce down there, and
there's a workforce as well. And when we return, I'll talk a little bit about that workforce, because workforce training and development are key components of making sure that we're competitive.
We're going to be back to you in 2 minutes. Again, my guest is Delegate Brian Moran, candidate for governor. And we're going to be talking about economic development. We're going to be talking about transportation and a few other issues in the next half hour. See you then.
Around the world, 1 out of every 3 women will be beaten or otherwise abused in their lifetime, often by a family member or loved one. A future free from violence. It's all she's ever wished for.
Did you know you have the power to stop children from joining gangs? You can help a father find a job and home for his family. You can assist a woman who can't afford the medicine she needs to live and the home she can't live without. You can choose to make a difference in our community. Support Volunteers of America, and you can help improve the lives of nearly 2 million Americans each year with programs and services that help individuals and families overcome their challenges to become as independent as possible. Support the programs that are working in our community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
For some folks, saving for the future is easy, but for you, it might take a little more effort. Saving for your future is your responsibility, and there's a lot to save for.
I never thought of that.
Like your child's education, perhaps uncovered medical expenses, or just to be sure you can live the way you want when you retire. The time is now to save for tomorrow. Save now or work forever. The choice is yours. Choose to save.
Once again, George Burke with the Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. We're talking with Delegate Brian Moran, Democratic candidate for governor, on a wide range of issues. But what we're dealing with right now is economic development.
Right, let's pick up workforce
Vital to
development.
this state.
Danville. IKEA has just brought some jobs to the Danville area. Again, an area that has just been struck by the loss of textiles and now furniture. It was Dan River plant was a very successful plant decades ago, and now they're suffering from double-digit unemployment.
They just blew up their, or imploded their dye room last week down there as part of that facility.
IKEA has come to Danville. In working with the local Danville Community College, they have developed a curriculum at this community college that, can prepare graduates to work at this IKEA plant. And they've created a curriculum, and they've graduated 32 students, all of whom are now employed by IKEA. They've all got jobs, all working. So that's the type of economic development and collaboration between our community colleges, our higher institutions of higher education, and a local company. And a couple more. I mean, Prince George's County, just outside Petersburg, Rolls-Royce Aviation has come to that area. And in collaboration with the local community college there, they're creating curriculum and will prepare a workforce to work at Rolls-Royce. And so there are some wonderful things happening. And I say I was in Israel. I joined the governor's trade mission to India last April to see firsthand what was happening in who really our competition is, India and China. And they're doing some interesting things. And we're trying to bring those jobs here to America. And you talk about one of the parents used to say there's a silver lining to every cloud. The high cost of energy and transportation now actually makes it a little bit more affordable. Well, maybe we can manufacture the product in Virginia and sell it to Virginians and Americans instead of manufacturing it there and transporting it here. And that's some of the things we need to sell. We need to sell our workforce, our great colleges and universities, and our transportation system. At least our location to Hampton Roads, where the port is. It's the second largest port.
It's the largest deep water port, though, right?
Largest deep water port. New York still has more traffic right now, but we're developing. And then, of course, the Pentagon, the International Airport, they just opened up their 4th terminal at Dulles. So we have a lot of assets here, a lot of things to attract jobs and attract industry.
And the quality of life.
And a wonderful quality of life. I mean, it's a beautiful, as I travel, George, I put miles and miles and miles on the vehicle, and the Piedmont's just beautiful, and the Shenandoah Valley, and the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the Great Southwest, and the beaches in Virginia Beach. I mean, there's so much to offer in terms of quality of life, and we need to market. We've been in India, we've been to Israel, and we're marketing Virginia, and we're trying to bring jobs here, and we try to develop and prepare and provide economic prosperity throughout the Commonwealth. And as Northern Virginia taxpayers, it doesn't, we don't encumber our taxpayers to fund other services in other regions.
But as you said, we are one Commonwealth, and we do need to stick together. And we saw some folks in the previous, McCain and some of his people in the presidential campaign trying to create some kind of a divisive rhetoric, which I don't think worked clearly based on the results of this election.
People are losing their jobs. I mean, they're not interested in that partisan rhetoric. And, we've embraced bipartisan achievement here in Virginia. I mean, we reach across the aisle. I've been in the minority for 7 years. Anything that I've been able to get accomplished has been because of Republican support. You need 51 votes out of 100 to pass anything in the House. And I have a long record of legislative accomplishments and bills passed with Republican support. I mean, you have to find common ground. Are we going to agree on everything? Absolutely not. I mean, I feel passionate about why I'm a Democrat and my values and my priorities. But in issues like Alicia's Law that I was able to get passed last year that cracks down on online child sexual predators. I reached across the aisle for support, and ultimately they provided it. Chickenpox vaccines for young kids and education. I mean, you have to find common ground, and we've been able to embrace that. So when politicians come in and there's partisan rhetoric, it just doesn't work. Virginia's not interested in that. They're really interested in politicians who are going to address their kitchen table issues. Who's going to provide more health care? Who's going to make the transportation system better? Who's going to make sure that we have good teachers in the classrooms? Who's going to make sure there's enough police and fire and emergency equipment to respond to my needs? And that's what Democrats have been able to deliver, and that's why we've been successful.
You know, I wanted to get back to public safety a minute. You know, we have very good police departments and sheriff's departments, but up in our neck of the woods, the sheriff's departments primarily are corrections and serving papers and court officers. But in many parts of the Commonwealth, other than the state police, who are spread very thin, as we all know, the sheriffs are the law enforcement.
Right. Here in Northern Virginia, we're used to seeing the sheriffs in the courthouse. But no, as soon as you get outside Northern Virginia, most of the law enforcement is provided by sheriff's deputies, and that's why I was so proud to receive their Legislator of the Year award, because they're providing safety on our streets. They're the ones who are investigating crime. They're the ones that are arresting criminal perpetrators, and so I was very, you know, that's public safety. It's one of our core responsibilities. I did it for 7 years as a prosecutor, and you know, politicians all the time pass tough laws. You know, oh, I passed a 20-year mandatory minimum for doing such and such. Well, as a prosecutor, I know you can't impose that penalty unless you have a successful prosecution. And you can't have a successful prosecution unless you have had a good arrest. And a good arrest depends on a good investigation. So you must provide our police and our sheriffs the tools, the training, the equipment necessary to make a good investigation, ultimately an arrest, and put those criminals behind bars. That's what Alicia's Law was about. It was about, you know, providing our law enforcement officers the tools and training. The computer age, everything gets, you know, sped up, and they have to have the latest training, because the criminal mind does. I mean, these folks who are preying on our young people have the latest and greatest, you know, tools and technology, and our law enforcement has to keep pace with them. That's what Alicia's Law was about. It was named after a young gal who suffered, you know, she was abducted from Pennsylvania, brought here to Herndon, Virginia, chained in basement for 4 days, but she survived, and she's willing to go public with her story so that it doesn't happen to any other young people. And she came to me to carry this legislation, and I was happy to do it. And you know, we're gonna crack down on these people. We're gonna find them. You have to find them, prosecute them, put them behind bars, and that's what we need to do.
We were talking about roads and transportation a few minutes ago, and everyone...
We'll always talk about
everyone in Northern Virginia thinks it's only our problem, but there are serious problems in the Hampton Roads area. The I-81 corridor are both two areas where they also have transportation issues. And
well, the transportation issues, they're a little different form. I mean, we have a capacity issue here in Virginia, in Northern Virginia. We have traffic. I mean, try to go 66 westbound. Constant. I mean, I did it today. And
today's a Sunday.
And today's a Sunday, so right, and it's backed up. Beltway, of course. So all of our major arteries and secondary roads are clogged. That's a capacity issue. I think we, you know, again, the high cost of energy, we really need to look at alternatives like mass transit, rail, bus rapid transit. And I know you've worked on the rail to Dulles, trying to get it through Tyson's Corner and develop a good rail system with Metro. And
just, I want you to continue on this point, but just about Metro, are we ever going to pay our share?
Yeah. Well, you know, we're approaching the legislative session, and as you have pointed out, the budget will be priority. How do we balance the books? Well, I'll tell you, for Northern Virginia legislators, we need to come back with the match to the federal government. And I say that, what it means is the federal government, the Congress, Tom Davis and working with others, have come up with $1.5 billion over 10 years. That's $150 million a year, 50 to Washington, D.C., 50 to Virginia, 50 to Maryland for Metro. But it's a match. You don't receive the $50 million unless Virginia comes up with $50 million. So at a minimum, with respect to transportation funding, we need to come back with $50 million. If we don't, we're wasting $50 million of our federal taxpayer dollars. So we need to come up with that. I've already started chatting with some of my Republican colleagues how to go about that. We need to come back with that so we can fund Metro. And that's essential to Northern Virginia, Metro.
Good, that's what I was hoping to hear. Let's go back to the transportation issue.
On a statewide, with capacity in Northern Virginia, but I-81, it's a safety issue. You have truck and passenger vehicle traffic, it's a safety issue, and we're trying to address it with spot improvements. You've been on I-81 recently, what you'll see is as the hills come up, you'll have a third lane, so trucks can go into a third lane and try to climb. Otherwise, it's you go to a Virginia Tech game and you take your life in your hands on 81.
Yeah.
And we're trying to address that. Ultimately, rail alongside 81, I think, is the ultimate answer.
Because that can move cargo as well as people.
Right. Well, and it certainly can take some of the truck traffic
Yeah.
off. And there was a recent agreement between all the jurisdictions, all the different states, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, to try to develop that. And we needed it because you can't have rail from Winchester to Bristol. You need it from all the way into North Carolina and north. So, but in Hampton Roads, again, a congestion issue. And they have even more problems than we do because they have water.
Correct.
And that means you have to build expensive bridges and tunnels. So it's a very expensive proposition. But the Hampton Roads port is extremely important to Virginia's, all of our economy. I just recently took a tour of the Norfolk International Terminal, just across from Craney Island, which is being developed. And it's just across also from Newport News, where all the coal is being shipped out of. You see the mountains of coal that's being exported. And the truck traffic that comes in, the cargo tanker comes in, unloads. I mean, it is, it's a sight to see because the trucks, and they don't run into each other. It's an engineering feat. And it is just, and the truck comes up on this side, and then, you know, the little machines taking the container off the boat, bring it over, the chassis of the truck, they match, and the truck pulls off. And there's 5,000 trucks a day, and that's only going to expand as the port expands. Those trucks use the roads. I mean, we have to address that issue. And so, and Richmond wants to have a regional authority like we did here in Northern Virginia because they have some issues as well. So transportation is an issue everywhere. It's not a capacity issue like it is here, congestion. But even in Southside, they see it as an economic development tool.
Yep.
They feel as though they have to have a good road to bring business and jobs and industry there. And they're right. Same with Southwest. So all of our, it's a statewide issue, and we've fought
some of
that
those
in the
roads in
legislature.
Southwest, and something we don't face quite as much, these are these windy, narrow mountain roads.
And if you
meet
get
a coal truck or a lumber truck, you're taking your life in your
I was just going to say, if you get behind a coal truck and you're in trouble. My family and I vacationed at Breaks National Park, Breaks Park State Park last year. It's beautiful. I'd commend it to your viewers. But it is not easy to get to or find. But it is beautiful when you arrive. But you know, you're right. I mean, they want what's called the Coalfields Expressway. They want to use the mountains that have been leveled off by the coal companies to dig coal, mine coal, to use it for a road. And the governor gave them $10 million to pursue that planning. And that is that's proceeding ahead, and we'll see how it develops. But you know, they need far more money than $10 million, and frankly, we don't have it at this point. So, you know, it's only going to go so far until we do something with respect to transportation.
We are going to take our final break in a few seconds, and you know, I wish I had another hour. I'd like to get Brian Moran to do a travel log for us on all of the miles you've logged in Virginia. Many of us in Northern Virginia, I've had the luxury of traveling quite a bit of the state, but there are many Northern Virginians who don't know what the rest of the Commonwealth is like. So please hang in there with us. We're going to talk about alternative energy and a couple of other issues. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll see you then.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
Once again, George Burke with the Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. We have Delegate Brian Moran, Democratic candidate for governor, with us today. We've covered a lot of ground, but one area we really haven't covered, but two areas really. We haven't spent a tremendous amount of time on the environment, and we haven't really talked about energy and alternative energy. And it's an area I think that is going to be very important in Virginia. It's very important to Barack Obama, and the governor's already said he wants to work on alternative energy, and he also wants to work on global warming issues and the like. You have a track record with groups that support you and your work on it, including energy efficiency and the like. Where are you going to go with it this year? What do you think can be accomplished?
Well,
and what do you intend to do as governor? But let's start in the macro, the micro first.
Well, it requires a bully pulpit. I mean, it really does require advocacy from the highest levels. And one of the reasons we're in the situation we're in, it's for the last 8 years we have not had that bully pulpit. You know, we've had somebody who has, you know, discredited global climate change and the Kyoto Conference, and so we haven't had that type of energy and environmental steward in the administration, George Bush. So we will start with that. Barack Obama recognizes it. I think one of the reasons he won is because he was very articulate in terms of what it is he wants to do with specifics with respect to alternative energy, and people recognize that. And so he we'll have the bully pulpit. In Virginia, though, we have our own energy plan right here in Virginia. We need to pursue clean alternative energy sources. And some have done. Again, as I travel, I mean, there are some nice, good things going. I mean, it needs some push, but things have started. We have wind power in Highland County. We have a biodiesel plant in Henry. We have a switchgrass plant in Chatham, Virginia. Virginia Tech's doing some extremely innovative research, and George Mason is as well. I should say, before we leave, I had a very nice tour at George Mason University with President Merton just recently, and a lot of interesting things, a lot of exciting things going on at the university here in Fairfax. But that we need to pursue those. I mean, you do it, right now we have to make it attractive for investors to invest in clean alternative energy. And so whether it's tax incentives, credits, we must attract capital investment in these programs, because ultimately it will be cost effective and beneficial, obviously, to save our planet. I mean, it's morally responsible, but we also have to make it fiscally attractive for investors to invest their money in these clean alternatives. What we start, though, we can do energy efficiency. And there are essentially 5 sources of energy, one of which is conservation. The most important gallon of gasoline is the one you don't use. So we can become more fuel efficient with vehicles, and efficiency with respect to our construction. I led the effort last year on LEED certified buildings, all state buildings, LEED certified, so that means they're energy efficient. We also, hey, why not create an economic stimulus package and provide our building and laborers, our contractors, our Joe the plumbers, to now start retrofitting our commercial buildings and a residential. That's retrofit, because that puts people to work, which is the best program of all, put people to work, and saves money on the electric bill, and saves the planet. So I mean, it's a win-win situation. We really need to push forward with it. Let's put people to work retrofitting. That's clean energy. That's energy efficiency. Retrofit, make sure you have the right home to, to save energy and not use it and not just blow it out the window. But then you have to pursue clean alternatives. The other 5 sources, here's your other one. You got solar, wind, alternatives. Algae. And those are things that we can pursue, and they are starting. And it just
we got plenty of algae.
We got some algae. We have hydrilla over in the Potomac.
Yep.
For instance, I don't believe we should depend on 19th century fossil fuels continue to move us. I don't support offshore oil drilling. And I know that's not a particularly popular position. People are, well, you drill here, drill now. Well, that's a simple slogan, and it's not a solution.
Spend a little time on the Texas coast or Southern California coast and see what it's done.
I've been to Galveston.
Beaches.
I've been to Galveston in Texas, and you see the oil. I mean, Virginia Beach, their biggest industry is tourism.
Yeah.
I mean, to suggest you're going to put oil rigs off the coast there is not a smart idea financially. In fact, it's not for years away. I mean, 12, 15, 20 years away can we even realize the oil. And if we haven't been serious about fuel-efficient vehicles and finding alternatives to oil, we're all in a heap of trouble in 12 or 15, 20 years from now. So I just saw that as a stopgap measure that, well, it wasn't even stopgap because it wasn't immediate, because you don't even get the oil in 12 years. So
and there's millions of acres out there that aren't being
the leases
used now.
The leases
that are already
leased
been
property
given.
now, and they're not even used. So it looked like a land grab. And frankly, our oceans are ours. And I saw it as a land grab. Exxon made how many billion last quarter? And they were trying to land grab in light of high energy costs.
I also think it was political rhetoric. A lot of it was political rhetoric, trying to create something that would differentiate the Republicans. They thought maybe that the public would latch on to. I don't think there is a tremendous amount of support for that in Virginia. When people truly start thinking about it and realize when they hear the facts, and hear, as you pointed out, that it's a dozen years away, and hear that there's already land out there, or ocean floor out there that can be drilled that's not being drilled. And they realize that maybe it's
another factor, mention another factor that's unique to Virginia is we have a naval facility in Norfolk and in Virginia Beach that uses that water to train, and you put oil rigs out there again. I mean, it causes problems. So Virginia is, we already have a tourism industry that we would not want to present environmental hazards to. We have a naval operations that are essential to our national security that occur right off our beaches.
And happen to also be integral to our economy.
Very important. Well, you mentioned the economy there. They're trying to move an aircraft carrier to Florida. Now, I wonder why they'd want to move the George Bush, which will be commissioned January of 2009, just in a couple of months, commissioned by George W. Bush for his dad, and they want to move it to Florida, former Governor Jeb Bush. Now, what that means is you will have 2 aircraft operations going on, one in Virginia and one in Florida. There's already 5 that are stationed, 5 or 6 that are stationed in Virginia. A couple are out to sea at all times. Another 1 or 2 are already in port to get serviced. They want to create a whole nother facility in Florida. Now, as a taxpayer, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It seems very inefficient, and it would appear to me to be more politics than policy about moving the aircraft carrier, because it's jobs. I mean, Norfolk is very concerned they'll lose, could lose as many as 10,000 jobs associated with that aircraft and aircraft carrier. So, that's a big decision. You mentioned that. Very familiar with that issue right now.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed was of course, Senator-elect Mark Warner, Senator Webb, and Tim Kaine spoke about it just recently. In fact, I think John Warner, Senator Warner, John Warner,
it's a bipartisan issue. There's no reason to.
And I noticed in the same article, Bill Nelson, good Democrat senator out of Florida, was arguing the other side of the case. And right there, it answered the question. This has nothing to do with security movement to Florida. It clearly has to do with politics and economics.
Right. Well, it creates jobs in Jacksonville, Florida, Mayport.
But it ultimately costs the taxpayers a lot of money.
I mean, is that smart to create a whole nother base for one aircraft carrier? I don't think that makes a lot of sense to taxpayers. And I think as they pay more attention, as Lou Dobbs or some of these others take a look at this, maybe they'll be able to see that this isn't good for the taxpayer. So energy, energy efficiency, clean alternative energy. These are things that we can do better. Let me just plug the governor here. Governor Kaine has created a global climate Change Commission for Virginia. They're coming forward with some recommendations. I'll obviously look very closely at those to see where they're going, and if they are bold enough, then I think we need to be bold in this regard. and we'll take a close look at those, and you'll probably see lots of legislation next year, but, you know, I pursue clean alternative energy. In fact, it's something simple, George. You know, I've traveled over Virginia, and you see, even when it's raining, you'll see water sprinklers going off at golf courses. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why is that going off at a golf course? Let's conserve water, and water, we're at a shortage. And so I put in a bill last year that they provide sensors. They don't cost much at all. They're less than $1, just pennies, to buy a sensor so when it's raining, the water sprinkler doesn't go off. And I got opposed by industry. The bill failed. I shook my head. I said, here, we have a water shortage, particularly in the summer months. When it rains, we shouldn't be wasting water. I mean, we need to really, you know, as Barack Obama says, bring some real change. And, you know, that type of thinking, I think we need to be far more conservative in terms of energy efficiency. And you know, I have a compost pile in my backyard. We compost everything. My kids know, my 6-year-old boy knows plastics from paper to, you know, cans. You know, we recycle everything, and you know, we all have to, you know, as charity begins at home, you know, energy efficiency and environmental conservation begins at home. And in Fairfax, I should plug, you know, in addition to our governor, you know, Jerry Connolly, the County Board of Supervisors, Sharon Bullitt, and others have taken the lead in Fairfax County, doing a great job with respect to being green and providing a tree canopy and doing the right things for our next generation. It's so vitally important right now that we do those sorts of things and take leadership.
We got about a minute left.
Yeah.
For the next 20, 30 seconds, give me your vision for Virginia. I mean, if you became governor, what would, when you become governor, if you want to say it that way, we're down to about 50 seconds, but for about 20, 30 seconds, just give me a...
Well, it's a Virginia where we do have clean water and air, and every graduate can compete. Every school's a good school. We have affordable and accessible health care, particularly for our children. And that's the type of issues I've been fighting for. I've been a legislative leader, a prosecutor, a Democratic leader. I've gained the support of numerous officials throughout Virginia, and I look forward to the months and weeks ahead. And I'd welcome your viewers to contact my website, brianmoran.com. I value their input and advice and would very much appreciate their support. And so, yeah, you know, we've accomplished a great deal in Virginia, but we have more to do, and I look forward to doing it.
I appreciate you being on today, Brian. I'm sure we'll have you again. Thanks again to Delegate Brian Moran, Democratic candidate for governor.